Presentation, I will be speaking about calcium and the effects it has on our bodies. First, to start off, we should ask the question, what is calcium? Calcium is a necessary mineral that is vital to our functions as humans. It helps us and allows us to perform everyday functions with ease. Now, what exactly is a mineral? A mineral is a chemical element required as an essential nutrient by organisms to perform functions. They are naturally occurring and inorganic, meaning they are not made by humans. Calcium is just one of the many major essential minerals we need. Now that we know what calcium is, what does it do? Calcium varies in its functions and benefits for the body. The first and most commonly known purpose is that it maintains bone strength and health. Calcium helps us grow and move easily by keeping our bones strong. Next, it allows for muscles to contract. Calcium ions create interactions between the proteins myosin and actin. These ions bind to the C component of the actin filament, which exposes the binding site for the myosin head to bind in order to stimulate muscle contraction. Calcium ions also play a big role in the regulation of coagulation. Calcium also sends electrical signals down axons, while also triggering synaptic terminals to dump neurotransmitters into synapses. They also aid in metabolism and cell growth. Now that we know what calcium does for us and how beneficial it is, we need to know where to get it. There are many different sources of calcium from which you can choose from. These options include milk and dairy products, green leafy vegetables, anything made from fortified flour, dried peas and beans, and fish with bones. There are other foods that can contain calcium, but these examples are very rich in calcium. Often doctors can recommend a dietary change in order to prevent or lessen conditions with deficiencies. There are certain amounts of calcium that each individual should receive each day. Recommendations by the RDA says adults should have about 1,000 milligrams per day. Adolescents should have 1,300 milligrams per day. And lastly, women over 50 and men over 70 should have 1,200 milligrams per day. If you do not receive calcium in your diet, you can get it through vitamin supplements. Calcium pantothenate is the form found in vitamin supplements. Some form of supplements are better for certain circumstances and individuals. It's all relative to the individual and their condition. These supplements are often prescribed by doctors to treat certain conditions. Although supplements can manage health conditions, it's actually illegal for companies to make claims that supplements will treat, diagnose, prevent, or cure diseases completely. Now, when we get the minerals needed, how are they digested and absorbed? Absorption is much more detailed than digestion regarding calcium. Absorption takes place in the small intestine. One of the two mechanisms involved in absorption is transcellular active transport. This can be stimulated by low calcium diets. The second mechanism is called paracellular diffusion, which is a passive process taking place in the intestine. Now, how do we store this calcium that we receive in our bodies? Almost all calcium is stored in bones and teeth, where it supports their structure and hardness. As we age, we absorb less and less calcium from our diet, causing our body to essentially take more calcium from our bones. One of vitamin D's jobs is to regulate calcium absorption. The two work together to protect our bones. Calcium builds and maintains the strength of our bones, while vitamin D helps the body absorb calcium. Without enough vitamin D, it does not matter if your calcium levels are adequate, because you won't be able to absorb them. Then that begs the question, what is too much or too little calcium? When blood calcium levels are low, the amount of calcium in our blood goes below normal. Our parathyroid glands release a hormone called parathyroid hormone. PTH tells our bones to release more calcium into the bloodstream. It also helps activate vitamin D, which in turn increases intestinal calcium absorption. Whereas when our blood calcium levels are too high, parathyroid glands produce less PTH. Many different conditions, symptoms, and diseases can evolve from having deficiencies in calcium. Another factor that affects these can be age. It is important to know the distinctions between these conditions listed. The first condition is hypocalcemia, which is a biochemical abnormality. It is caused by inadequate levels of parathyroid hormones. It can be treated in a few ways, including oral calcium supplements. Next, focusing on osteopenia. It is a condition that is common as you get older, where your bone mass lowers and becomes brittle due to a loss of calcium. There is a test you can do called the DXA to see if you suffer from this condition. This test measures the mineral content of your bones. If you fall in a certain category, it will show if you suffer from osteoporosis or osteopenia, or if your levels are normal. Certain preventative measures you can do are avoid smoking, trying not to drink an excessive amount of alcohol, trying to incorporate vitamin D and calcium into your diet, trying to exercise regularly, such as running or walking. If you do suffer from osteopenia, treatments can include dietary changes and exercise. And lastly, what is osteoporosis? It literally means porous bone. The condition refers to the loss of bone mass or density. There are no symptoms, which categorizes it as a silent disease. When viewed under a microscope, a healthy bone looks like a honeycomb. When osteoporosis occurs, the holes and spaces in the honeycomb are much larger than in healthy bone. It affects 50% of women over 50 and 25% of men over 50. About 54 million Americans suffer from low bone mass, which places them at a higher risk for osteoporosis. Now, how can we prevent osteoporosis? Similar to osteopenia, with a balanced diet and active lifestyle, you lower your risks for this disease. To conclude, I wrote down some personal and general takeaways from this project. My grandmother's motto is everything in moderation. By leading a balanced life, you set yourself up for a healthier future. This can help support you through good times, but also bad times in your health. Naturally, there are some things you cannot prevent, such as aging, but aging is natural. Maybe knowing more about what you can do now will prepare you for what's to come later.